The Alpha called me Luna in name only. Until he started a war for me. What could make an Alpha dismiss his own Luna so coldly, only to risk a war for her later? What could possibly change between them? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional story of fate, loyalty, and unexpected love. Thank you for watching, supporting the channel, and sharing these journeys with us. Your continued support truly means so much. Now, tell us in the comments, could you forgive someone who once made you feel unimportant if their actions later proved otherwise? Keep that question in mind as we step into a world where titles can hide the truth and silence can carry more than words. And now, our story begins. You are my Luna in name only, Claire. Leave this to me. Alpha Cole Harrison did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The words crossed the council chamber and settled over the long oak table with enough weight to silence every elder seated around it. Claire Whitmore remained standing beside the Northern Territory map, one hand resting near the red marks she had drawn across 3 supply routes. Morning rain tapped softly against the tall windows behind her. She could hear it because nobody else dared speak. The grain delays are coordinated, Claire said, keeping her voice steady. 3 shipments were redirected within 8 days. Medicine from Pine Creek was held for inspection twice, and the northern settlements have less than 2 weeks of reserve food. Elder Walter Pierce leaned back in his chair. With respect, Luna, delayed wagons do not make a military strategy. A few men exchanged restrained smiles. Claire ignored them. She looked only at Cole. He sat at the head of the table in a dark charcoal shirt, his black hair still damp from the rain outside. His gray eyes moved over her report, page by page. He had been reading it for nearly 10 minutes. Carefully. Too carefully for a man who supposedly thought she was wrong. Iron Ridge is testing how quickly we respond, Claire continued. If we wait until the northern settlements run short, Grant Mercer will know exactly how much pressure it takes to divide our resources. Walter gave a quiet laugh. And you reached this conclusion from grocery invoices? Claire felt heat rise beneath her collar, but she refused to give him the reaction he wanted. From shipping records, inspection schedules, fuel receipts, and 6 months of border reports. Walter opened his mouth again. Cole closed the folder. The small sound ended the argument before it began. Claire waited. She had not expected praise. She had stopped expecting that months ago. But she had thought, foolishly perhaps, that he would confirm what the evidence clearly showed. Cole looked at her. His expression revealed nothing. You are my Luna in name only, Claire. Leave this to me. The sentence hurt more because he said it calmly. Walter lowered his eyes to hide a satisfied smile. Claire felt every gaze around the table shift toward her, waiting to see whether the quiet Omega would finally break. She straightened the papers she had brought, though they were already perfectly aligned. As you wish, Alpha. She gathered her folder and walked toward the chamber doors. No one stopped her. Cole did not call her back. The hallway beyond was cool and empty, smelling faintly of cedar polish and rain. Claire kept walking until the council doors closed behind her. Only then did she let her fingers tighten around the folder. Luna in name only. Perhaps she had always known. A title at ceremonies. A chair without a vote. A wife whose reports were read but whose voice could be dismissed whenever powerful men were listening. Claire drew one slow breath and continued down the corridor. Inside the council chamber, Walter Pierce chuckled. At least she understands her place. Cole's chair moved sharply against the floor. The laughter stopped. Mason Brooks, Cole's beta, waited until Claire's footsteps disappeared before speaking. You know she was right. Cole reopened Claire's report. Every page contained notes in his handwriting. Dates circled. Routes underlined. Iron Ridge checkpoints marked in black ink. His jaw tightened as he stared at the final map. I know. Mason studied him. Then why did you humiliate her? Cole looked toward The closed doors Claire had just passed through. For the first time that morning, something colder than authority entered his eyes. Because if Grant Mercer discovers how much I trust my Luna, he said quietly, Claire becomes the first weakness he will try to use against me. 1 year earlier, Claire Whitmore had entered Cole Harrison's private study expecting a marriage proposal and found a contract waiting instead. The document rested between 2 untouched cups of coffee, 12 pages of formal terms drafted by PAC attorneys and approved by both families before Claire had been invited into the room. Outside the windows, late November snow covered the Cedar Valley estate in white, softening everything except the man standing beside the fireplace. Cole was 31 then, newly confirmed as alpha after his father's retirement, carrying a pack divided by old rivalries and nervous allies. Claire was 24, an omega from the Whitmore family, respected enough to satisfy tradition but politically unthreatening enough to satisfy the council. She understood why they had chosen her. Understanding did not make the arrangement feel less strange. Cole waited until she finished reading before speaking. You can refuse. Claire looked up. That was not what she expected. And what happens if I do? Nothing to you. His answer came immediately. The council finds another candidate. Your family keeps its agreements with Cedar Valley. I will make certain of that. Claire studied him more carefully. Everyone described Cole Harrison as cold. Sitting across from him, she saw something more precise than coldness. Control. Every word seemed inspected before he allowed it into the room. Why me? She asked. Because you are trusted. That sounds like an answer for the council. A faint change crossed his gray eyes. It is. Claire waited. Cole finally sat opposite her. You stabilized the Whitmore Relief Fund after your uncle nearly bankrupted it. You reorganized winter deliveries to 3 rural settlements. People speak honestly around you because you listen before you decide what they need. Claire had not known he knew any of that. That sounds more like your answer. It is. Silence settled between them. Claire looked again at the contract. The position offered security, responsibility, and influence, at least on paper. What it did not offer was tenderness. Cole made that clear before she could mistake duty for romance. I can give you my name, protection, and respect, he said. Do not ask me for love. The words should have offended her. Instead, Claire appreciated their honesty. She had watched too many political marriages begin with beautiful promises and become quiet resentments. I am not asking for a fairy tale. Good. But if I become your Luna, I will not spend my life smiling beside you while everyone else makes decisions. Cole held her gaze. I would not ask you to. That promise became the reason she signed. 3 weeks later, they married beneath cedar branches and winter lights before nearly 400 PAC members. Cole was courteous throughout the ceremony. His hand remained steady beneath hers. When she stumbled slightly over one ceremonial phrase, his thumb moved once against her fingers, a small reassurance no one else seemed to notice. Claire remembered it for months afterward because moments like that became increasingly rare. Their marriage settled into separate bedrooms, shared dinners when schedules allowed, and public appearances polished enough to satisfy the council. Cole never treated her cruelly in private. That almost made the distance harder to understand. He remembered how she took her coffee. He left reports outside her study when he thought they might interest her. During storms, he checked whether the generator near her wing was working. Yet whenever council doors opened, warmth vanished from him. Claire kept telling herself respect could still be enough. Then, month by month, she discovered the cruelest part of their agreement. Cole had given her his name exactly as promised. He had simply never given her a place beside him. By spring, Claire had learned that being Luna meant everyone knew where to find her when something went wrong and almost no one remembered her when decisions were made. Her mornings began before 7 with messages from families across Cedar Valley. A schoolhouse near Mill Creek needed money for a damaged heating system. 2 elderly PAC members required transportation to medical appointments nearly 40 miles away. The western settlements were running short on antibiotics after late snow blocked a delivery route. Claire handled each problem quietly. She called suppliers, moved funds between approved household accounts, arranged drivers, and remembered names. That last part mattered more than she expected. People noticed when their Luna remembered that a widow preferred phone calls after noon because mornings were hardest, or that a frightened 8-year-old boy hated hospitals but loved baseball. They began bringing Claire problems they once carried alone. The council called these matters domestic affairs. Claire called them people. At formal meetings, however, her chair remained 6 feet behind Cole's. She could attend, listen, and take notes, but she had no vote. Walter Pierce rarely addressed her unless discussing ceremonies, charities, or seating arrangements. Once, when Claire questioned whether winter fuel reserves were sufficient for the northern settlements, Walter smiled and said, "The logistics committee has it handled, Luna." 3 weeks later, the committee quietly adopted the exact reserve increase she had recommended. Nobody mentioned where the idea originated. Claire told herself recognition did not matter if families stayed warm. She believed that until she began noticing Cole. He never defended her publicly. Yet every report she submitted returned with questions written in his neat black handwriting. Why did Mill Creek's costs increase 12%? Could the Western Clinic share transport with Pine Creek? Which northern families would be most vulnerable if Highway 12 closed early? Claire answered every question. Cole read every answer. Sometimes she would enter her study after dinner and find a new folder waiting beside her coffee. No note. No explanation. Just information she had not officially been authorized to see. One rainy evening, she carried one of those folders to his office. Cole stood beside the window, reviewing territory maps. "Did you leave this for me?" Claire asked. He glanced at the folder. "Yes. It contains council transportation records." "I am aware. Walter says those records are outside my responsibilities." Cole's mouth tightened slightly. "Walter says many things." Claire almost smiled. "Then why not tell him I should have access?" Cole looked back toward the rain. "Because there is a difference between what I trust you with and what I want publicly known." The answer unsettled her. "Known by whom?" "Everyone." Claire waited for more. None came. "Sometimes I cannot tell whether you respect me or are embarrassed by me." Cole turned then. For one brief second, something unguarded crossed his face. "I have never been embarrassed by you. You have an unusual way of showing it." She left before he could answer. Weeks later, Claire stood at a community dinner while an elderly woman from Mill Creek squeezed her hand and whispered, "You are the first Luna who ever asked what we needed before deciding for us." Across the crowded hall, Claire saw Cole watching. Pride seemed to soften his gray eyes. Then Walter approached him, and the expression disappeared instantly. Claire looked away first. She did not know that later that night Cole would request every intelligence report mentioning her name. She only knew that the man who trusted her behind closed doors kept turning her into a stranger whenever the world was watching. The first shipment was delayed by 6 hours. Claire noticed because the Northern Clinic called her before it called the logistics committee. The second shipment arrived nearly a day late with an inspection stamp from Iron Ridge on paperwork that should never have crossed Iron Ridge territory. By the third delay, Claire stopped believing in coincidence. She spent 2 evenings at the long desk in her study with shipping manifests spread beneath a brass lamp, comparing dates, fuel receipts, road permits, and weather reports. Outside, early fall rain brushed against the windows. Inside, a pattern slowly appeared. Grain from Cedar Valley was being redirected toward Highway 12. Medical deliveries were being stopped at temporary checkpoints. Fuel trucks serving Pine Creek and Mill Creek were arriving with identical delays despite leaving from different warehouses. Someone was measuring how quickly Cedar Valley noticed pressure. Claire marked each incident in red and carried the file to Cole the following morning. He was alone in his office when she arrived. "You need to see this." Cole took the folder without questioning her. For 15 minutes, he read in silence. Claire watched his expression become increasingly still. The delays began 5 weeks ago, she said. They are getting closer together. Cole turned to the map she had included. Why northern settlements? Because they are farther from our central warehouses. If supplies tighten there, we have to redirect vehicles, fuel, and personnel north. She pointed to 3 roads. Then the southern routes become thinner. Cole's eyes lifted to hers. You think Mercer is testing response time? I think he wants to know how easily he can make us move resources without crossing a territorial line. Cole looked back at the report. Claire felt the rare satisfaction of being understood before she finished explaining. Bring this to council, he said. Tomorrow morning. Hope surprised her. You want me to present it? Yes. For the rest of that day, Claire prepared carefully. She expected questions. She expected Walter Pierce to challenge her assumptions. What she did not expect was Cole. The next morning, she stood beside the same map while Walter dismissed the inspection records as bureaucratic interference. Claire explained the matching delays. Another elder questioned whether weather had caused them. She produced rainfall and road condition reports. Then Walter smiled. Luna, perhaps we should avoid turning inconvenient grocery deliveries into an international crisis. A few restrained laughs moved around the table. Claire looked toward Cole. The man who had studied her evidence the previous morning now sat behind an unreadable expression. The pattern is deliberate, Claire said. If we do nothing, the northern settlements could be vulnerable within weeks. Walter waved one hand. That is speculation. It is preparation. Claire turned to Cole. You saw the same pattern I did. Silence. His gray eyes met hers. She waited for him to confirm it. Instead, Cole closed the folder. The council will handle the border issue. Claire stared at him. Cole. It was the first time she had used his name inside that chamber. Walter noticed. Everyone did. Cole's expression hardened immediately. That is enough, Luna. Something inside Claire went quiet. She gathered her papers and left without another word. She did not see Cole wait until the doors closed before ordering Mason to double surveillance along Highway 12. She did not hear him instruct the logistics chief to secure alternate supply routes using Claire's map. And she did not know that 1 hour earlier, Mason had placed an intercepted Iron Ridge intelligence memo on Cole's desk. The memo contained only 7 lines. 6 concerned Cedar Valley's northern supply network. The 7th concerned Claire Whitmore by name. Claire stopped waiting for permission the morning Mill Creek called to say its pharmacy had less than 5 days of essential medicine left. She stood beside her study window with the phone pressed to her ear, watching rainwater run down the glass while the clinic director explained that another delivery had been delayed at a temporary inspection point. When the call ended, Claire looked at the northern map covering her desk. Red marks crossed the same road she had warned the council about. She could still hear Cole's voice from the chamber. That is enough, Luna. For months, she had accepted being dismissed because challenging him publicly seemed likely to create more problems than it solved. This time, families could pay the price for her obedience. By 8:30, Claire had called 3 private suppliers, 2 transportation companies, and every community coordinator north of Highway 12. She moved money from the Luna household budget into emergency food and medical reserves, all within spending authority already assigned to her office. She arranged temporary storage in Mill Creek, secured additional fuel in Pine Creek, and asked local families to prepare voluntary transportation plans for elderly residents in case the roads became unreliable. Nothing about the plan was military. Nothing crossed territorial boundaries. It was simply preparation. By noon, 12 vehicles were moving supplies north. At 2:15, Cole walked into her office carrying one of the authorization forms. Mason remained outside. Claire knew immediately why he was there. You redirected nearly $60,000 this morning. Cole placed the paper on her desk. From my household emergency fund. Without consulting me. Claire looked up. You told me the border situation belonged to the council. That did not mean you could reorganize northern logistics on your own. I did not reorganize pack logistics. I purchased food, medicine, fuel, and transportation for families. Cole's jaw tightened. Claire. What would you prefer I call it? She asked. Charity? Domestic work? Something small enough that Walter Pierce will not feel threatened? Cole became very still. Claire stood. She was tired of speaking to him from a chair while he decided which version of her existed. You told me I was Luna in name only. Her voice remained quiet. So I stopped waiting for the title to give me permission to care. Something flickered across his face, almost pain, but disappeared before she could trust it. This is not about your title. Then tell me what it is about. Cole looked toward the windows. There are things happening beyond what you see. Claire gave a small, humorless laugh. Then let me see them. He said nothing. That silence hurt more than anger would have. You cannot keep telling me I am uninformed while refusing to give me information. Cole's eyes returned to hers. For several seconds, neither moved. Finally he picked up the authorization form. How much reserve did you send? Claire blinked at the change. Enough food for 3 weeks. Medicine based on clinic requests. Fuel for emergency transportation. And evacuation capacity? About 70% of vulnerable residents within 6 hours. More of the school buses are available. Cole studied her. Make it 90. Claire stared at him. What? Use whatever remains in the household emergency account. If you need more, tell Mason. Before she could ask why, he turned toward the door. Cole. He stopped. Were you ever going to tell me I was right? His shoulders remained rigid. I was hoping you would never have to be. Then he left. Claire stood alone, confused and angry, until she noticed the paper he had forgotten on her desk. It was not her authorization form. It was a northern security map. Every evacuation route she had designed was already marked in Cole's handwriting. The first northern road closed at 6:12 the next morning. Claire learned about it from a message sent by the Mill Creek coordinator, followed less than a minute later by another from Pine Creek. Iron Ridge had suspended commercial passage through 2 shared transit corridors, officially citing new inspection requirements. No one had crossed Cedar Valley territory. No threats had been issued. Yet the effect was immediate. Trucks stopped. Delivery schedules vanished. Families who depended on weekly shipments suddenly faced uncertainty. Claire was dressed and downstairs within 10 minutes. By the time she reached the operations room, Mason was already standing over a wall map while phones rang across 3 desks. Cole stood beside him, calm enough that anyone watching might have believed he had expected this exact morning. Perhaps he had. Claire's eyes moved to the map. Her supply routes were there. So were the alternate roads she had marked the previous day. Mill Creek has enough medicine for nearly 3 weeks now, she said. Mason looked at her. Because of yesterday's delivery. Pine Creek has fuel reserves too. Cole turned toward her. His gray eyes held hers for a moment before shifting back to the map. And the vulnerable residents? Transportation plans are ready. 92% can be moved within 6 hours if necessary. Walter Pierce entered just in time to hear her. He stopped beside the table, visibly surprised. When was this arranged? Claire answered before Cole could. Yesterday. Walter looked toward the Alpha. You authorized it? Cole's expression remained unreadable. The Luna acted within her household authority. Claire noticed what he did not say. He did not claim her work as his own. Walter's mouth tightened. Convenient. Necessary, Mason corrected. By noon. The consequences of the closures were spreading, but Cedar Valley's northern settlements remained stable. No families were stranded. Clinics had medicine. Community centers had food. School buses stood ready if transportation became necessary. Claire spent hours answering calls, checking inventories, and reassuring coordinators who had expected panic. Each time she looked toward Cole, she found him handling security and diplomacy on the opposite side of the room. They worked around each other without speaking. It should have felt like partnership. Instead, Claire kept remembering that he had prepared her evacuation routes before admitting there was danger. Near sunset, the shared corridors reopened without explanation. Walter called it proof that everyone had overreacted. Claire said nothing. Later that evening, she returned to the operations room looking for a missing inventory sheet. The lights were low, and she expected the room to be empty. Cole stood alone beside the wall map. On the table before him lay every evacuation plan Claire had created during the past 4 months. Not copies made that morning. Older drafts. Her handwriting. Her notes. Even the version she had discarded because one route added 11 unnecessary miles. Cole had marked each page with questions, corrections, and alternate fuel calculations. Claire stopped in the doorway. "How long have you had those?" Cole looked up. For once, there was no counsel between them and nowhere for either of them to hide behind formality. "Long enough." "You studied all of them?" "Yes." Claire stepped closer. "You used my plans?" "Yes." "And this morning they worked?" His gaze remained steady. "They did." The answer should have satisfied her. Instead, anger tightened beneath her ribs. "Then why do you keep pretending I have nothing worth hearing?" Cole's silence returned. Claire shook her head. "I cannot understand you." She turned to leave. "Claire." She stopped but did not face him. "The northern closures were not random," he said. "I know." "No." His voice lowered. "You know they were testing Cedar Valley." Claire finally turned. Cole picked up a thin intelligence file from beneath her maps. "What you do?" "Not know is what they started asking after you presented your first report." He placed the file on the table. Claire saw her own name printed near the top. "Iron Ridge has been collecting information about the Luna of Cedar Valley," Cole said. Claire stared at the page. "Why?" Cole's expression hardened. "That is what I intend to find out before they realize how much you actually matter here." The message from Iron Ridge arrived the following morning in a cream envelope sealed with dark gray wax. Claire was finishing coffee in her study when Mason appeared at the door and asked her to come to the council chamber. Something in his expression told her this was not another discussion about supply routes. Cole was already seated when she entered. Walter Pierce and 5 other elders occupied their usual places, but nobody was speaking. A single sheet of paper rested in front of Cole. Claire took her chair 6 feet behind him and immediately hated the distance. "What happened?" she asked. Cole looked at Mason. "Read it." Mason lifted the letter. Alpha Grant Mercer requests a formal negotiation regarding the Northern Transit dispute. To demonstrate good faith, Iron Ridge asks that Luna Claire Harrison attend as a neutral witness familiar with the affected supply network. Claire felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Walter spoke first. "That is unusual, but not unreasonable." Cole's gaze sharpened. "It is entirely unreasonable." Walter lifted one hand. "They are not demanding territory or money. They are requesting a witness. They requested my wife by name." The words were quiet, but Claire heard the difference immediately. Not the Luna. Not a ceremonial representative. My wife. Walter apparently heard it too. Which may actually benefit us. Claire understands the supply issue better than anyone. Claire almost laughed at the sudden recognition. 2 days earlier, Walter had reduced her work to grocery invoices. Now her expertise had become useful because another alpha wanted access to it. "Where would the negotiations happen?" she asked. Mason answered. Iron Ridge's diplomatic lodge, roughly 30 miles north of the shared boundary. How long? 1 day. According to the letter. Cole turned toward her. You are not going. Claire held his gaze. Was that a request? No. The answer came too quickly. Something inside her tightened. Then why am I here? Walter leaned forward. Because the council should consider every option before rejecting a peaceful proposal. Cole's eyes never left Claire. There is nothing to consider. Claire remembered the intelligence file with her name printed near the top. You said they were collecting information about me. They are. Then perhaps this invitation tells us why. Cole's expression hardened. Or it gives Mercer exactly what he wants. Which is? Claire asked. Silence. Again. She felt frustration rise. You keep asking me to trust conclusions you refuse to explain. Walter interrupted. Luna, this may prevent further trade restrictions. Thousands of pack members depend on those routes. Claire looked around the table. The calculation was already happening behind their faces. One woman traveling 30 miles into another territory weighed against thousands of residents and a growing political dispute. Suddenly she understood why Cole looked furious. Not because Iron Ridge had made an impossible demand. Because they had made one the council might call reasonable. I want to see the entire letter, Claire said. Cole pushed it toward Mason instead. No. Claire stared at him. It concerns me. Which is exactly why you are not making this decision alone. I have not been allowed to make any decision at all. Walter sighed. Perhaps we should adjourn and discuss the diplomatic consequences without emotion. Cole turned toward him so slowly that Walter stopped speaking. Without whose emotion? Walter cleared his throat. That was not what I meant. Claire rose. She was suddenly exhausted by rooms where men discussed her value while pretending they were discussing policy. If Iron Ridge wants an answer, give them one. Cole stood as well. Claire. She paused beside the door. What answer? He asked. She looked at the letter, then at the council members who had spent a year reminding her how little authority her title carried. Tell Mercer the Luna of Cedar Valley will consider his request. Cole's face went completely still. Claire opened the door. Behind her, Walter whispered, if sending one ceremonial Luna prevents a larger conflict, perhaps that is the responsible choice. Claire did not turn around. She did not see Cole's hand close over the edge of the table. She only heard his answer, low enough to make the chamber fall silent. Choose your next words very carefully, Walter. Claire made her decision shortly after midnight. She did not make it because Walter Pierce had called her ceremonial, or because Iron Ridge had requested her by name, or even because she believed one woman should be traded for the comfort of thousands. She made it because she had spent the entire evening waiting for Cole to come to her and tell her the truth. He never did. Rain whispered against the windows while Claire sat at her desk with the Iron Ridge request copied beside her northern supply maps. Cole had forbidden the journey, but prohibition was not explanation. He had spent months asking her to trust locked doors, unfinished sentences, and public humiliation. Claire could no longer build loyalty from silence. She wrote 3 letters. The first transferred control of the Luna household emergency accounts to Mason until her return. The second contained updated instructions for Mill Creek and Pine Creek if the northern roads closed again. The third was only 6 sentences long. She addressed it to Cole. You wanted a Luna in name only. Perhaps this is what that finally looks like. I will attend the negotiation voluntarily. If my presence can prevent another closure, I need to know that I tried. Please do not turn my choice into another order. Claire folded the letter and left it on his desk. At 1:30, she walked through the eastern entrance carrying a small overnight bag. She wore jeans, boots, and a dark wool coat instead of ceremonial clothing. 2 household drivers were waiting near the garage. Claire dismissed them. She would not involve anyone who could be accused of disobeying the Alpha. At the northern gate, the night guard stared at her identification twice. Luna, Alpha Harrison ordered that no diplomatic party leave tonight. I am not a diplomatic party. The guard looked miserable. Ma'am. Claire softened. I am not asking you to violate a security order. Open the civilian gate. I am traveling under my own name. He hesitated, then checked the written regulations. Nothing prohibited her from leaving Cedar Valley voluntarily. That absence suddenly seemed enormous. 20 minutes later, Claire drove north beneath a black sky, following wet pavement through miles of cedar forest. She expected fear. Instead, she felt hollow. Her phone remained silent on the passenger seat. Part of her hated herself for watching it. She imagined Cole discovering her letter and feeling irritated rather than frightened. Perhaps Walter had been right about one thing. Perhaps Cedar Valley truly could exchange a ceremonial Luna for peace and lose nothing important. At 3:10, Claire reached the neutral checkpoint near the shared boundary. Iron Ridge representatives were waiting beneath the lights. She parked on Cedar Valley's side and stepped out. Luna Harrison, a gray-haired official asked. Claire is fine. He offered formal documents confirming diplomatic passage. Everything appeared legitimate. Claire read every page before signing. As she crossed the checkpoint, her phone finally vibrated. Cole. She stared at his name until the call ended. A second call came immediately. Then a third. Claire switched the phone to silent. Back at Cedar Valley, Cole stood in his study holding her letter while Mason waited near the door. The Alpha read the 6 sentences twice. Then a third time. When did she leave? Eastern entrance at 1:30. Northern gate logged her passage 40 minutes later. Cole looked toward the empty hallway outside Claire's study. Her coat was gone. Her coffee cup from the evening remained beside a stack of supply reports. For nearly a year, he had convinced himself that distance would keep her safe. Now that distance measured more than 30 miles. Mason spoke carefully. Iron Ridge has confirmed she arrived. Cole folded the letter once. His face revealed almost nothing, but Mason had known him long enough to recognize the change. Call the council, Cole said. Now. Mason glanced at the clock. It is after 3 in the morning. Cole looked at Claire's final sentence again. Please do not turn my choice into another order. His voice dropped. Then wake them. They wanted to discuss whether my Luna was worth the cost of peace. They are going to hear my answer. The council assembled at 3:47 in the morning, wearing yesterday's clothes beneath hastily pulled-on coats, and Cole was already waiting when the last elder entered. Claire's chair stood empty behind him. For the first time, everyone seemed to notice it. Walter Pierce took his seat and rubbed a hand across his tired face. Mason said this was urgent. Cole placed Claire's letter on the table. My Luna crossed into Iron Ridge territory less than an hour ago. Walter's eyebrows rose. She went voluntarily? Yes. A faint relief appeared on the elder's face. Then perhaps this solves the immediate problem. Cole looked at him. The relief vanished. Does it? Walter chose his words carefully. Mercer asked for her presence. She agreed. If negotiations reopen the northern corridors, we avoid escalation. Another elder nodded. No one forced her to go. Cole's gray eyes moved around the table. You spent yesterday discussing her as though she were a negotiable asset. She heard you. Walter straightened. We discussed what was best for Cedar Valley. Without asking what was best for Claire. She made her own choice. Cole looked at the empty chair again. After I spent a year teaching her that her voice mattered everywhere except beside mine. No one answered. Mason stood near the wall, watching something rare happen. Cole Harrison was not defending a strategy. He was admitting failure. Walter exhaled. Alpha, regret does not change the situation. No. It changes what I do next. He pushed a second document across the table. Effective immediately, all northern commercial traffic will move through Cedar Valley controlled routes. No private carrier will use Iron Ridge checkpoints. Emergency reserves remain active. Walter scanned the page. That will cost us significantly. Then it costs us. And Claire? Cole's jaw tightened at her name. Mason has requested confirmation that she remains free to leave after negotiations. And if she does? She comes home if she chooses. Walter studied him. If she chooses? Cole's gaze hardened. I will not correct one mistake by making another. Nearly 30 miles north, Claire sat across a polished conference table from 3 Iron Ridge representatives beneath bright fluorescent lights. Alpha Grant Mercer had not appeared. The officials were courteous, almost excessively so. They asked about Cedar Valley's supply needs, emergency reserves, and alternate routes. Claire answered only questions directly related to reopening trade. After 40 minutes, she noticed something troubling. They seemed less interested in solving the dispute than learning how Cedar Valley had survived it. You prepared those settlements quickly, one representative observed. We planned ahead. Was that Alpha Harrison's strategy? Claire paused. Cedar Valley's strategy. The man smiled. Diplomatic answer. Claire closed the folder before her. When will Alpha Mercer join us? The representatives exchanged a glance. His schedule changed. Then I would like to return home. The smile disappeared. Of course. We only need clarification on several additional points. Claire looked toward the clock. The meeting had been scheduled for 1 hour. It had already lasted 90 minutes. Her phone, returned to her after security screening, vibrated against the table. A message from Mason appeared on the screen. Are you free to leave? Claire looked toward the closed conference room door. I asked to return to Cedar Valley. The oldest representative folded his hands. And you may, once the formal session concludes. Claire's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression calm. Then conclude it. Back in Cedar Valley, Mason's phone rang. He answered, listened for less than 10 seconds, and looked at Cole. They have extended the session and delayed her departure. Walter immediately said, that does not mean she is being held. Cole rose from his chair. No anger showed on his face. That frightened Mason more than shouting would have. Send Mercer one message, Cole said. Claire entered Iron Ridge as a voluntary diplomatic. Witness. She leaves the same way, immediately. Walter stood. And if Mercer refuses? Cole looked once more at the empty Luna chair. Then he will discover exactly how badly he misunderstood what that chair means to me. There is something I should have told you a year ago. Cole said the words to Claire's empty chair, because she was 30 miles away and the truth had arrived too late to help either of them. Dawn had begun turning the council chamber windows gray. No one had left. Iron Ridge had received Cole's demand 17 minutes earlier and had not answered. Walter Pierce paced near the fireplace while Mason monitored messages at the far end of the table. What exactly should you have told her? Mason asked. Cole looked at Claire's report stacked beside him. Why I kept her outside council decisions. Walter stopped pacing. You kept her outside because she is an Omega with no political experience. Cole's eyes lifted. No. You kept telling yourself that because it made her easier to dismiss. Walter fell silent. Cole opened the intelligence file Claire had seen the previous evening. 4 months ago, Iron Ridge intercepted correspondence identifying the people closest to Cedar Valley's leadership. My beta. Senior council members. Financial officers. He turned a page. Then Claire's name appeared. Mason understood first. They were identifying leverage. Cole nodded. I thought if Mercer believed my marriage was ceremonial, Claire would look useless as leverage. Walter stared at him. So you publicly diminished her? Yes. Cole did not soften the admission. I convinced myself distance was protection. Mason looked toward the empty chair. And did you ever tell Claire? No. Then from her side, you were simply ashamed of her. Cole's jaw tightened. I know that now. Walter returned to the table. If your strategy kept her safe for months, perhaps it was not entirely wrong. Cole looked at him. A strategy that requires my wife to believe she is worthless beside me is wrong. The room went quiet. I read every report she wrote. I used her recommendations. I trusted her judgment enough to build emergency plans around it, then let her walk into rooms where everyone believed I considered her irrelevant. His gaze moved toward the rain beyond the windows. I protected her from Mercer's attention by teaching her she could not depend on mine. Mason's phone vibrated. Everyone turned. He read the message twice. Iron Ridge responded. Cole stood. What did Mercer say? Mason's expression hardened. The negotiation has been extended. Mercer now wants Cedar Valley to reopen 2 disputed commercial permits before Claire's departure. Walter whispered, they changed the terms. Cole said nothing. 30 miles north, Claire had reached the same conclusion. She stood near the conference room window while an Iron Ridge official explained that the additional discussion was merely procedural. I came here voluntarily, Claire said. And I am leaving voluntarily. Of course. Then open the door. The official hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. Claire picked up her coat. Tell Alpha Mercer that negotiations are over. Luna Harrison, leaving before the documents are finalized could create serious diplomatic consequences. Claire met his eyes. Keeping a diplomatic witness after she has withdrawn consent creates worse ones. No one answered. Her phone vibrated again. This time the message came from Cole. Claire expected an order. Instead, she read 3 sentences. I was wrong to make you feel powerless in order to keep you safe. You owe me neither forgiveness nor obedience. Tell me only this, are you free to leave? Claire stared at the screen. For a moment, the room disappeared around her. It was the first time Cole had explained anything without demanding trust first. She typed 2 words. Not yet. In Cedar Valley, Cole's phone lit up. He read Claire's answer and became completely still. Walter stepped closer. Alpha, whatever Mercer is doing, we cannot let personal attachment dictate pack policy. Cole slowly placed the phone on the table. Personal attachment? Walter hesitated. You know what I mean. Cole looked around the council chamber, at the men who had spent a year believing his coldness meant indifference. Then he looked at Claire's empty chair. Yes, he said. I finally do. Bring my Luna home. Cole's voice was quiet, but every person in the council chamber understood that the discussion had ended. Walter Pierce pushed back from the table. Alpha, think carefully. Iron Ridge has not harmed her. Mercer is applying diplomatic pressure. Cole looked at him. Claire entered his territory as a voluntary witness. She withdrew her consent to remain. He changed the terms afterward. Then we negotiate. We already did. Cole turned to Mason. Close Cedar Valley's northern commercial crossings to Iron Ridge traffic. Suspend Mercer's transport privileges through our eastern corridor. Notify Pine Ridge and Silver Creek that Iron Ridge is holding a diplomatic representative after she requested departure. Mason nodded. Walter stared at Cole. Those actions could divide every alliance in the region. Then everyone will know exactly why. Another elder leaned forward. You are willing to risk open conflict over one ceremonial Luna? Cole stopped. The room became so still that the rain against the windows sounded suddenly loud. He turned toward the elder. There is nothing ceremonial about my wife. Walter opened his mouth, but Cole continued. She identified Mercer's strategy before this council did. She prepared our northern settlements before the roads closed. She kept families supplied while some of you laughed at her reports. His gaze moved slowly around the table. And I let you laugh because I thought making her appear unimportant would keep her safe. No one looked away. That mistake ends today. Mason's phone vibrated. Silver Creek wants clarification. Are we declaring hostilities? Cole considered the question. No. We are declaring consequences. Cedar Valley will not cross Iron Ridge's boundary. We will not threaten civilians. We will not answer pressure with recklessness. He placed both hands on the table. But every agreement Mercer benefits from will be suspended until Claire is free to leave. Walter's face tightened. That is economic war. Cole's eyes were cold. Then Mercer should have opened the door. 30 miles north, Claire stood beside that closed door while the Iron Ridge representatives received messages faster than they could answer them. One man's phone rang twice. Another left the room and returned pale. Claire watched the confidence drain from their careful expressions. What happened? She asked. No one answered immediately. Finally, the gray-haired official cleared his throat. Cedar Valley has suspended Northern Transit cooperation. Claire stared at him. Cole did what? 3 neighboring packs have requested formal explanations from Alpha Mercer. Silver Creek has paused a trade vote scheduled for this afternoon. Claire felt her heartbeat quicken. Because of me? The official looked uncomfortable. Because of the diplomatic dispute. Claire knew political language well enough to recognize avoidance. Her phone vibrated. A regional notice appeared on the screen. Cedar Valley had formally declared that no negotiation could continue while its Luna was prevented from leaving voluntarily. Claire read the statement twice. There was no possessive language. No claim that she belonged to Cole. No demand that Iron Ridge surrender her. Only one sentence repeated near the end: Luna Claire Harrison retains the right to leave diplomatic proceedings at any time. Something tightened behind Claire's ribs. Cole was not demanding obedience from her. He was demanding everyone else respect her choice. The conference room door opened. Alpha Grant Mercer finally entered. He was older than Cole, silver beginning at his temples, his expression controlled but irritated. Your husband has created a remarkable amount of trouble this morning. Claire met his gaze. Then perhaps you should have let me leave. Mercer studied her. You truly did not know how important you were to him. The words landed harder than Claire expected. Apparently neither did anyone else. Mercer gave a humorless smile. Harrison worked very hard to make sure of that. Claire thought of the council meetings, the empty space between their chairs, the reports Cole studied in secret. Protection without trust. She finally understood the shape of his mistake, but understanding was not forgiveness. Am I free to go? She asked. Mercer glanced toward his advisors. One of them nodded reluctantly. Yes. Claire picked up her coat. At the same moment, nearly 30 miles away, Mason received confirmation. She is leaving. The council released a collective breath. Cole did not. He looked toward Claire's empty chair and gave one final order. Keep every restriction in place until she crosses back into Cedar Valley. Walter stared at him. Mercer released her. You have one. Cole's expression did not change. This was never about winning. It was about making certain the word no still meant something when my Luna said it. You should not have risked Cedar Valley for me. Claire said it before Cole could welcome her home. She had crossed the northern gate less than 20 minutes earlier, yet she had refused the waiting vehicles and walked the final stretch to the pack house herself. Morning rain had faded into a thin mist, leaving the stone courtyard dark beneath her boots. Cole stood beneath the covered entrance with Mason several yards behind him. No council. No ceremony. No audience. Claire was grateful for that. Cole looked as though he had not slept. His black shirt was wrinkled at the sleeves, and exhaustion shadowed his gray eyes. I did not risk Cedar Valley because you belong to me, he said. Claire stopped several feet away. Then why? Cole did not answer immediately. For once, his silence did not feel like a wall. It felt like a man refusing to hide behind the wrong words again. Because you told them you wanted to leave, and they decided your answer was negotiable. Claire folded her arms against the cold. You suspended trade agreements. You pulled neighboring packs into the dispute. Walter called it economic war. Walter calls anything expensive a war. She almost smiled, but the hurt between them was too large for humor to carry. You still did it for me. Yes. The word came without hesitation. Claire looked away toward the wet cedar trees. A year ago, you told me not to ask you for love. Then you spent months making sure everyone believed I meant nothing to you. Yesterday, I believed it too. Cole absorbed the words without defending himself. I know. Do you? Claire looked back at him. Do you know what it was like to sit 6 feet behind you while men used my work and laughed at my judgment? To watch you read every report I wrote in private, then act as though my voice embarrassed you in public. His jaw tightened. Yes. No. You know why you did it. That is not the same as knowing what it did to me. Cole lowered his gaze. You are right. The simple admission took some of the anger out of her before she was ready to lose it. I thought Mercer would ignore you if he believed you had no influence over me, Cole said. I thought distance would remove you from the list of people who could be used against Cedar Valley. Instead, he watched me because you were trying so hard not to. Yes. Cole drew a slow breath. And while I was trying to make our enemies believe you were unimportant, I let you believe it too. Claire felt the truth settle painfully between them. That was not protection. No. It was abandonment with good intentions. Cole's face changed, but he did not look away. Yes. Claire had expected an argument. His refusal to excuse himself made anger harder to hold and forgiveness impossible to rush. So what happens now? She asked. Cole stepped no closer. Whatever you choose. That sounds convenient. It is not. His voice softened. If you want another residence, it is yours. If you want the marriage dissolved, I will not oppose you. If you want me to explain publicly what I did, I will do it before the entire pack. Claire searched his face. And if I stay? Cole looked toward the pack house behind him, then back at her. Then I stop asking you to stand beside me privately while placing you behind me publicly. The words reached somewhere deeper than she wanted them to. Claire shook her head. I cannot forgive you today. I am not asking you to. And I will never be decorative again. You never were. Then prove it. Cole nodded once. Tomorrow morning. Council chamber. Claire studied him. What happens tomorrow? For the first time since she returned, something steady and certain entered his expression. You take the seat I should have given you from the beginning. Aluna does not belong behind her alpha. Cole's words stopped every conversation in the council chamber. Claire stood just inside the doorway, one hand still resting on the polished oak frame. Morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, turning yesterday's gray rain into something almost impossible to remember. The same elders occupied the same chairs. Walter Pierce sat halfway down the table. Mason stood near the far wall. Everything looked exactly as it had before, except Claire's chair was gone. For one painful second, she thought she had misunderstood Cole's promise. Then she saw the new chair beside his. Not behind him. Beside him. Cole remained standing as she crossed the room. No one spoke. Claire could hear the soft rhythm of her own footsteps against the hardwood floor. When she reached the table, Cole did not pull the chair out for her. He simply stepped aside, leaving the choice entirely hers. Claire understood. She sat. Only then did Cole sit beside her. Walter cleared his throat. Alpha, before we begin, perhaps we should discuss the procedural implications. We are discussing them now, Cole said. He placed a document on the table. Effective today, the Luna will hold a permanent council seat with authority over civilian welfare, emergency logistics, community resources, and diplomatic matters directly affecting those responsibilities. Walter frowned. That changes generations of tradition. Claire looked at him. Tradition nearly left 3 northern settlements without medicine. Walter's mouth closed. Cole did not rescue him from the silence. Claire continued. I am not asking anyone here to pretend I have experience I do not have. I am asking that when I bring evidence to this table, the evidence is judged before my title, my rank, or anyone's opinion of what an Omega should understand. One elder slowly nodded. Another lowered his eyes toward the reports in front of him. Walter remained stiff. And Iron Ridge? He asked. Claire opened the folder she had brought. Their commercial privileges remain suspended until they sign new diplomatic protections guaranteeing voluntary departure for all civilian representatives. Walter glanced toward Cole. Is that the Alpha's position? Cole did not answer. He looked at Claire. She understood the question hidden inside his. Silence. It is mine, she said. Cole nodded. Then Cedar Valley stands behind it. Something inside Claire shifted. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But perhaps the first stone beneath a bridge that might someday hold their weight. Over the following weeks, Iron Ridge accepted the new terms after neighboring packs adopted similar protections. Northern trade resumed. Mill Creek's clinic remained stocked. Pine Creek returned and used emergency fuel to reserve storage. Life became ordinary again, but Claire did not. She stopped shrinking her voice to fit rooms that had never made space for it. Cole stopped asking her to. Their marriage changed more slowly. He did not suddenly become tender because one crisis had frightened him into honesty. Claire would not have trusted that transformation anyway. Instead, he began with smaller things. He knocked before entering her study. He explained security concerns before making decisions that affected her. When they disagreed in council, he disagreed openly and expected her to do the same. Months passed before Claire realized they were having dinner together more often than schedules required. One winter evening, nearly a year after Iron Ridge, they stood on the pack house porch while snow covered the cedar trees. Cole handed her a cup of coffee exactly the way she liked it. Do you remember what you told me before we married? Claire asked. You said you would not ask for a fairy tale. And you said you could not give me love. Cole looked toward the snow. I was wrong about several things that year. Claire smiled faintly. Several? An embarrassing number. She laughed, and Cole looked at her as though the sound mattered more than any council victory. Then his expression grew serious. I will not ask you to forget what I did. Good. But there is something I need you to know. Claire waited. Cole met her eyes. I started that fight because Mercer refused to respect your choice. But I kept fighting because somewhere along the way, protecting the title stopped mattering. His voice softened. You mattered. Claire felt the winter air catch in her lungs. She did not answer with promises. She simply moved half a step closer until their shoulders touched beneath the falling snow. For Cole, it was enough. Power had once given him the authority to call Claire his Luna. It had taken losing her trust to teach him the difference between possessing a title and earning the woman beside it. And from that winter forward, whenever Claire entered the council chamber, no one looked toward the chair behind the Alpha. There was no chair there anymore.